Hey everybody, if you're reading the title of this little clip, what is food, and some of the basic definitions I want to talk about briefly this morning, you're probably thinking, I already know what food is. What I'd like to do today, and again briefly, is to just pretend that we know nothing. Let's clear our minds and let's start from the very, very basics when it comes to health and nutrition and food. And let's just talk about and look at just the specific definitions as if we'd never heard of food or health or nutrition or toxins or anything, and we needed it to be explained to us, and we went to the dictionary, and just hang with me for a little bit, because I think this is like very simple, but it's actually very powerful. Most of us have struggled to some degree to stay healthy, to get healthy, maintain our health. And as we've mentioned over and over again, it gets more and more difficult to do that because of the tremendous amount of conflicting and confusing information out there, and sometimes outright misleading information. So what we always like to do here is we like to keep it simple. We think it is simple, and we want to take that even one step further and just, again, wipe our minds clear for a second, and let's talk about some basic definitions. So like starting with food. What is food? So if we went to the dictionary and looked up food, it would say food is any nutritious substance that people or animals eat or drink or ingest in any way in order to maintain life and growth. Now, that's important because we are in a society now where, do we really think of food that way? We know that we need food, and we know that we get hungry, but we know, most importantly, that we enjoy food. We enjoy eating, we enjoy flavor, we enjoy the other things that surround food, right? The social aspects, the maybe eating with a family, sharing a meal, all of those other associations. That's what we've come to know as food. And the emphasis has been more and more on how does it taste, as opposed to what is it doing for us. And I want to now drill down a little bit. So if food is a nutritious substance, what does that mean? So nutritious is providing nourishment, to a high degree, and nourishment, which is again necessary to provide, maintain life and provide growth. So very interesting, and nutrition is the process by which we do that, how we utilize the proper foods to keep our bodies healthy and alive and well and growing and healing and all of that. Health in and of itself, the definition of health is being free from illness or injury. So I'll tell you where I'm going with this in a couple of minutes. So that's what food is. Food is what we need to nourish us, to sustain us. Sounds very obvious, sounds very simple, but if we really clear our minds and think about it, is that how we approach what we eat and what we put into our bodies? Is that how we're thinking before we eat? The other thing is the word food, given that definition, we hear it not just with with our diets, right? We hear food for thought, right? So is that food that we're putting into our minds, is that helping us grow? Is that helping us maintain? Is that keeping us healthy? Health again, free from injury or illness. Are we taking that same approach with what we're putting into our minds, or what we're allowing our minds to hold on to and to process and to sit with? Is that food nourishing, or is it not? And same thing with our soul. So we've got the body and mind part. What about the soul? This is food for the soul, right? This is good stuff, helping other people. That kind of thing is food for our soul. It's nourishing. It's helping us to grow. It's helping us to be healthy, free from illness and injury. Now, on the flip side of all of this, what does it mean to be toxic or a toxin? Now, a toxin is something that causes disease even at low concentrations. That's the definition. I'll read it for you. There's many, but they all say basically the same thing. Toxin of plant or animal, or in our cases, most often not man-made, produced by microorganisms causing disease at low concentrations. How often do we hear just a little bit of poison is okay? And when we look at our diets and we look at the water and the air and the food, how many toxins we're taking in every day? could be fluoride and chlorine. Well, again, these are very, very toxic substances. They're in our water, they're in our pools, they end up in our foods. Pesticides and herbicides, they're in almost all of the grown grains, the corn, the soy, and the wheat in our country now. These pesticide, herbicide residues that are toxic and poisonous, that's in our food. Things like mercury in our fish, the dental fillings in our mouth. I mean, it just goes on. And then when you add in the preservatives and the chemicalized food, the processed food, the dyes to color our food, all the things to preserve it, to preserve the shelf life, to keep it on the shelves longer. This is going against the natural process of food breaking down and decomposing live food. We've gotten so far away from that. So the growth hormones, the antibiotics, the table salts, the emulsifiers, and the list goes on and on of the things that are now in our food that are toxic. So what is food, again, is something that's building us up, and a toxin is something that is taking away. It's knocking us down. And all of this, again, and that goes for the toxic nature to extend it to mind, body, and soul. Are people, places, and things in our life toxic to us, toxic to our feelings, toxic to our thinking? Do we need to make changes there as well? So we can all admit to having, make some improvements in our diet, but extending that to all areas of our lives that are just as important, if not, I would argue, more important than the physical food we put in our body. So the purpose of all of this is, as we head into embark on our healthy journey, which can always start now, to be mindful. And this is just really another way of getting mindful and clearing the deck and taking things back to basics. It's simple. And is this, before I put something in my mouth, is this something that's going to build me up or tear me down? Is this food? Is it even food? By definition, nourishing and important, and is it going to maintain my life and help me grow? If not, then it must be either toxic or very taxing to my body. Usually they go hand in hand. And just having that mindfulness before we do it, and that pause, can really go a long way. It can start to change our habits, and it can start to incentivize us to make healthier substitutions that just become a way of living. And forget the diet, it's a way of living and a way of survivor bias of healthier things making it into our system, and the crappier shit getting out of our system is all part of the healthy journey and the healthy process, and it will work. How much we do that is up to us, but the results, the greater the results happen, to the greater extent that we do those types of things. But again, I just wanted to bring up a little bit of mindfulness into food, what it is, and taking that into practice, lives, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it's just, again, mindfulness and a pause. Will this build me up, or will this tear me down? We're going to talk at length in the upcoming challenge, if you're going to get involved, about processed foods, about live foods, different types of foods, what's in live food, and what's eliminated when food is processed, and how a very healthy food can become a very unhealthy food. That's later, but just wanted to give you some food for thought and have you maybe think about some of these things, and just wipe and say, what is food? What is this doing to me? That's where it needs to start. We talked about it, how nobody really has our back. We need to be taking control of our own health and being aware and educated as to what is going into our bodies has to be, the first step. So anyway, I hope you guys thought that was helpful and useful and somewhat positive, and we'll be back with some more, hopefully good stuff coming up.